What do you think is the most profitable business model in the world? Technology? Oil? No. The answer is far bloodier: war. While you are calculating how your wages are eroding with inflation, someone has ensured that every tax you pay and every breath you take flows into a war machine as debt. Today, I'm going to show you why the money in your pocket is actually a war bond. This is one of the darkest and most hidden truths of modern history. For America, war has never been just about survival, justice, or freedom. At the heart of every conflict, there was money. Raw, cold, ruthless money. Every battlefield was not just a place where weapons and soldiers collided, it was a stage where financial opportunities were harvested. While ordinary citizens sent their sons to die, while families struggled to put food on the table, a giant financial machine was quietly turning bloodshed into profit behind the scenes. America didn't just fight wars. It learned how to monetize them and turn this into the bedrock of the global financial system we live in today. The story begins in 1914. When World War I broke out, America was not directly involved. It was Europe that was bleeding: Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary. They were locked in a conflict that consumed men and money at a terrifying pace. Millions of soldiers marched, tens of millions of shells were fired. And the bills. The bills began to pile up far beyond what any treasury could handle. This is where America saw its first big opportunity. From across the Atlantic, American industry and American banks stepped onto the stage. They became the arsenal and lender of democracy. Wall Street banks, especially J.P. Morgan, signed unprecedented deals with the British and French governments. Morgan alone provided billions of dollars in loans. Think about it, what did billions of dollars mean in the 1910s? These were figures that dwarfed the federal budget itself. And all of it came with interest. Every shell that exploded on the Western Front didn't just carry TNT. Each one carried debt obligations to American financiers. America officially entered the war in 1917. But by then, its financial system was already intertwined with the outcome. If Britain and France lost, Wall Street lost too. Ordinary Americans were told it was their patriotic duty to buy Liberty bonds. These debt instruments, marketed with emotional propaganda, urged citizens to lend their savings to the government. Celebrities paraded through cities, children collected coins. For the first time in history, an entire nation was financially mobilized to fight a war. But the reality was much darker. While small savers lent a few dollars, the real winners were the bankers and defense industrialists at the top. Factories boomed. Profits soared. J.P. Morgan's influence over governments reached unprecedented levels. And a new precedent was set in history: war could now be financed not by gold or taxes, but by debt sold to the public. This mechanism never went away. Fast forward. World War II. Europe fell into chaos again, and American industry stepped in once more to fill the gap. Roosevelt declared, "America will be the arsenal of democracy." By the time America entered the war in December 1941, its factories were already running at full capacity. Ships, planes, tanks, ammunition. The world had never seen such a scale of production. But here was the catch: the financing machine was also running at full throttle. More than 85 million Americans bought war bonds. The money they raised, $185 billion. More than half the total cost of the war. The financial system had learned the formula. Package sacrifice as an investment, and turn citizens into the lender of last resort. Meanwhile, companies like Boeing, General Motors, and Ford shifted from civilian production to guaranteed, profitable military contracts. The government paid up front, factories produced weapons, and shareholders collected dividends. The link between money and power grew even tighter. War was no longer just a tragedy to be endured. It had become an economic engine. While the guns thundered, another revolution was quietly taking place in the financial world: the end of the gold standard. During the war, America suspended the free convertibility of gold to protect its reserves. The dollar was transforming into something new, no longer just a claim on gold, but a currency backed by the power of the American state, its industrial output, and its military might. In 1944, with the Bretton Woods Agreement, this became official. The dollar was crowned as the world's reserve currency. This was a direct result of the war. And it transformed American financial power into global financial dominance. Think about it, the wars that destroyed Europe enriched and empowered the United States. Every bond sold, every loan issued, every factory retooled, laid the foundation for America to emerge not just as a victor on the battlefield, but as the financial center of the modern world. The story doesn't end in 1945. The Cold War began, and this time the conflict was as much a financial war as a political one. Military spending skyrocketed. Aerospace, electronics, oil, entire industries were fed by defense budgets that never stopped growing. Economists called it military Keynesianism, the idea that government spending on war keeps the economy humming and prevents depression. What had once been an emergency measure became a permanent strategy. And here lies the hidden truth. When you build a system where war spending fuels profits, there is always an incentive for more conflict. Defense contractors thrive. Banks thrive. Politicians thrive. And what about ordinary citizens? They carry the cost through inflation, taxation, and debt. By the time the Vietnam War began in the 1960s, the formula was fully embedded in the system. Military conflict was no longer just ideological, it was an economic lever. Vietnam cost America more than $100 billion. An astronomical figure at the time. Yet despite the human toll, the financial gears kept turning. Defense contractors supplied helicopters, weapons, and napalm at guaranteed prices. Banks financed deficits through the bond market. The inflation of the late 1960s and 1970s was the clearest signal of how war spending distorts an economy. President Johnson promised both guns and butter. But the reality was brutal, deficit spending flooded the system. And finally, in 1971, the historic break came. Richard Nixon ended the gold standard completely. Foreign governments could no longer exchange dollars for gold. The dollar became a fiat currency, backed not by metal, but by trust in the American government and, crucially, its unmatched military and economic power. Vietnam didn't just change geopolitics. It transformed money itself. The oil shocks of the 1970s arrived. And once again, financial strategy intertwined with war and resource control. The petrodollar system was established, oil would now be priced exclusively in US dollars. This ensured that America's currency remained indispensable worldwide, even without gold. Military presence in the Middle East guaranteed the survival of this system. Money and war were now one and the same. Fast forward to the 1991 Gulf War. Iraq's invasion of Kuwait threatened not only regional stability but global oil markets. America's response was swift. The war itself was brief, but the financial gains were immense. The war was broadcast live on television, and so were the profits. Military tech companies showcased their precision-guided missiles, and stock prices soared instantly. War was now both a testing ground and a marketing campaign. And then came the turning point of the 21st century, the September 11th attacks and the War on Terror. Here, the financialization of conflict reached unprecedented levels. The wars in Afghanistan and Iraq cost America an estimated $6 trillion, including long-term veteran care and interest on the debt. That figure is so large it remains almost abstract. But think about it this way, that debt burden alone could have financed free college tuition for generations, the complete rebuilding of infrastructure, or the transformation of the healthcare system. Instead, where did it go? It flowed to companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Halliburton. They became household names, not for innovation or civilian progress, but for fueling endless wars. And again, the same financing method was used. Bonds were issued. The Federal Reserve kept interest rates low. Ordinary taxpayers shouldered the load. Did America win these wars in the traditional sense? No. Vietnam ended in withdrawal. Iraq descended into chaos. Afghanistan was abandoned after 20 years. But look at it financially, the contracts were fulfilled. The loans were repaid. The interest kept accruing. War became profitable regardless of the outcome. For those at the top, endless conflict was not a problem. It was a business model. Now, let's connect this to today. The military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower warned about in 1961 is now an inseparable part of the American financial system. Defense spending is one of the largest components of the federal budget, over $800 billion a year. Entire industries and regions depend on it. Wall Street profits from financing it. Politicians get votes by protecting it. And the cycle repeats endlessly. How does this affect you? The money in your pocket, the inflation you feel at the grocery store, the taxes deducted from your paycheck, they are all tied to a financial system that has normalized war as a permanent background condition. Whether bombs are dropping or not, the machine is always running. Think about the 2008 financial collapse. It wasn't caused by a war, but the playbook was eerily similar: government bailouts, protected corporate profits, and ordinary citizens left holding the bag. During the pandemic, trillions of dollars in aid were given. Most of it flowed to financial markets and corporations, not the working population. The mechanisms perfected in wartime are now applicable in peacetime. The war machine has merged with the financial system itself. Once you understand this, everything changes. Conflict and crisis are not anomalies. They are features. They are opportunities for those who know how to leverage debt, currency, and resources. For everyone else, they are traps. Inflation erodes savings. Bubbles burst. Debt chains tighten. The financial system thrives on volatility because volatility creates dependency. And dependency ensures control. It's not just that war is bad or governments are corrupt. Those are obvious. The deeper lesson is this: money and power are inseparable. Every major conflict in modern history was as much about financial opportunity as it was about ideology. Understanding this gives you a clearer lens. When you hear calls for intervention, when you see defense budgets rising, when you notice your cost of living creeping higher, ask not just who the enemy is, but who is profiting. Real financial education is not just about budgeting, investing, or saving. It is about learning how the system itself is designed, who it serves, and how history reveals the same repeating patterns. Economic history isn't about numbers in textbooks. It is about lives, sacrifices, and the rise and fall of empires. And about the hidden architecture of debt and profit that shapes every headline you read today. The next time someone tells you war is about honor, democracy, or freedom, remember this. War is also about balance sheets, interest payments, and corporate profits. History doesn't repeat itself, but the financial system ensures it rhymes in ways that keep you paying the bill. If you want real wealth, if you want true financial freedom, you must see past the slogans and propaganda. Recognize the machinery of money and power for what it is. Because if you don't understand it, it will crush you all the same. If this video gave you a new perspective, hit that red button. History has the answers, and here, we show you where to look. Because if you don't want to be a victim of the system, you must learn the rules of the game. See you in the next video. Until then, keep your eyes open.